Good.
Welcome to Season 4 of Outstanding Women Leaders, Witty and Wise Conversations. I'm your host, Katie L. Leeds, founder and chief owl at Outstanding Women Leaders, Owl Professional Coaching, an organization dedicated to empowering women leaders and the men who support us. Owl Podcast is on a mission to host 100 million witty and wise conversations that disrupt the way leaders think and inspire you to begin disrupting your own business as usual in your brain. This disruption begins with a set of rules to guide our conversation today. Number 1, nobody gets to be wrong. Number 2, nobody gets to be right. Number 3, everybody gets to be vulnerable. And number 4, my favorite, everything is included. If your child walks in, your phone rings, it's in the podcast. We do not edit here. This conversation is exactly what it needs to be in this moment in time. We've asked our guests to join us via video to allow us to create authentic connection. Eyes are the window to the soul. You will be seen here. You will be heard. There is space for you. When this conversation comes to a close, I will ask our guests 3 questions. If you've tuned in before, you know what they are. If you haven't, you don't want to miss them. But enough about me. Today, I am excited to welcome outstanding women leader, Dana Banks, the owner of Bello Business Solutions, your one-stop shop for all things bookkeeping, accounting, and business consulting. When Dana isn't cooking the books, she loves Grogu, traveling, and of course, playing with her nephews. After trying many professions, including teaching at-risk youth and preschool students, being a student mentor, managing a corporate tax business, and so many more random jobs that didn't make her happy, and after getting many certifications and degrees, including a bachelor's in elementary ed, certification in interdisciplinary and educational childhood, surgical technology, an LPN in nursing, master's in computer science, Dana found her love of accounting. It fulfills her love of math that she has, her curious nature, and ability to solve real-life math problems. My favorite things about Dana include her Southern charm, how she treats everyone like family, and that, like George Washington, she cannot tell a lie. Just ask her. Her face says it all. Welcome, Dana. I'm going to just go off camera for a second while my computer buffers. I'll come right back. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. You cannot tell a lie. Your face shows it all. And what makes you the perfect business solutions for people in accounting and taxing is you need someone that's honest.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, you're right. My face cannot tell a lie. It also is very descriptive. I've been told that I'm a very visual person. And that when I visualize something, my face expresses that. So I would have to say that is probably the truth.
Well, I'll tell you what, my face visually expresses math through anger and frustration and frowny lines. So you would be the person for me to come in and let me be able to see on your face that math is clear. But before we dive into the cool stuff that you're doing now and how I got to meet you here in Knoxville, Tennessee, you are a Kentucky girl. Not born, but raised there to lovely parents. And your first career was teaching for you?
So my first professional career was probably actually teaching, and I had a love of the students, of how I could help them grow and prosper. And I started out in elementary education, ended up, which is something that I will go back to at some certain point in time in my life, was at-risk youth. And when I say that, they were ages 16 to 24. And the way the program worked is we worked with at-risk youth that come to us a lot of times out of the juvenile system, or, they just had bad home lives or something like that. And we would help them get a GED, build a house for a low-income family, and graduate with money for college. And they also had to qualify for certain criteria, like be drug-free for a year and things like that. And one of my favorite stories is one of my kids that come to us, and he was just lost. That child is now, he's not a child no more, he's a grown man, but now that child he works at West Point and serves for the president of the United States. So it's an impact like that I was able to make in young people's life. So now I kind of took some of that passion and I help business owners.
Yeah. So Dana is also a 5-1 human design. I talk about human design here on this podcast. And so I always love another teacher. We tend to be very similar. We have a heart for the youth, particularly at-risk youth as well. Sorry, guys that are doing just fine. You would have flown
We're
under
there for
my
you
radar. But the difference that you're making, you're talking about stepping into a young person's life, and what an incredible program to be able to not only make sure they have money for college and that they're going to go to college and that they're going to stay drug free for a while. It's so important for the young brain as they're developing.
Yeah.
And yet, just like me, you left teaching and
Mm-hmm.
this feeling that somehow I will support kids again. What I personally love about leaving teaching is that all those kids I supported, they're all millennials in the workforce. And so I get to support them now. And you also, getting to support these kids as they're coming up through after college. And I'm sure you see a lot of some of those former students in the businesses that you serve now.
Well, not as much. I don't see them as much now in Tennessee, but I mean, I still made such an impact on those kids in Kentucky because I mean, they're probably now about 450 miles away. But I mean, I made an impact on them, and they'll still pick up the phone and they'll call me and say, "Hey, mama, not that I was a mom to any of them, but I was a mom. I was the only mom some of them ever knew." And they still know that I do taxes, and they'll call me and say, "Hey, I got this question," or "Hey, some of them's now got kids that are going to college, and they're like, 'You helped me get into college. What did we do?'" And so I mean, it's things like that. And so I know not only did I change them for that brief period of time, and I would probably still be there to this day. But we were funded by Department of Labor and Rural Housing, and we lost our funding. So I mean, it was not a traditional school system setting at all. And that's why I said one day I'll open something like that up again. But I mean, those, like I said, I still call them kids. They're not kids. They're in their 20s and 30s, some of them's even 40s now. But yeah, I mean, those are the impacts that made me who I am today and who makes me appreciate what I do, because I do see young people that come in here that have started businesses and they don't know, and I'm able to answer those questions, and I'm able to talk to them as if they were a student of mine and build that relationship. So I think having those teaching years helped build me to the way I'm able to talk to my clients today, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see that in you, that we're teachers by trade. We're always going to be teachers by trade.
Yes.
We love to help other people learn something new. It's exciting for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so this teacher, myself, would love to know what it's like to live in Kentucky. Because the rest of the world that doesn't live in Kentucky, we all have the things we say about Kentucky. And because Dana's a 5'1", that means that when she walks in the room, people just project whatever they think Kentucky is onto her. The only thing I really know about Kentucky is that y'all are sad when we beat your football team.
And Katie's seen that because she was there. It was pretty ugly. So all I'm going to say about it is every stereotypical thing that you've heard about Kentucky, go ahead and throw that out the window right now. We are actually highly educated. Most of us do have all of our teeth, and we don't walk around barefoot and pregnant. We usually have shoes, at least for the most part. But no, growing up in southeastern Kentucky, we were very blessed. I actually grew up in a very small town, and it had pros and cons, just like most of small towns. And I was actually just there yesterday, and it felt good to go back and relive some of those memories. And I was joking with my friends, like, "Yeah," I said, "this is the street." I said, "I get in trouble on this street." And I said, before I ever got home, I said, "My daddy would know what I did." So it wasn't no sense in lying about it. And I showed her my high school, and I said, at the time we graduated, I said that we were the largest graduating class of 31 whole students. And I said, but all of Kentucky is not like that. Everybody thinks of Kentucky. You hear about the Lexington basketball. Okay, I'm going to blow a lot of people's mind away here. I'd rather watch Kentucky football than UK basketball. It's okay, people. Keep breathing. It's just
sports are very important in Kentucky. I have learned.
Oh, sports. Yeah, sports matter way above anything else, and that's okay. So I'm going to tell something on my dad because I have this audience. He used to get up on, my dad's a Baptist minister. He used to get up on Sunday morning. If Kentucky was playing on Sunday, he's like, "Well, nice to see you guys here this morning. I guess I'll see you next Sunday morning because Kentucky plays tonight. So it was just an understanding that if sports come first, didn't matter what. I mean, it was sad to say, but yeah. So all I can say is take your towns, whether it's a small town in Kentucky or wherever you are, take it for the value it gives you where you're at. Don't judge it. So
I had some of those same judgments about my own small town when I grew up there. I can tell you when I had the sunroof or the moonroof in the car and we drove around when I was 17, by the time I got home, my mom said, "What was it like hanging out in the sunroof?" How did you know? There's this thing in small towns called vanity plates. And they're not that expensive. It's like an extra $15. So everybody knew my parents' plates because the darn last name was on there. So I feel that. And when I get to go back to that town, I still have some of those fond memories and sentiments. I did not have a Baptist father though. What's that like? I feel like this is kind of a fun this is what it's like to grow up in the South. Your dad's a Baptist minister.
They have pros and cons, if I'm honest. You're held to a higher standard above everybody else. So we were always, my dad would probably kill me if he ever was to listen to this, but my sisters will agree. You were held to a higher standard. You were judged because your father was a minister. So you had to watch what you wore, what you said, where you sat, if you just sat too close in the church, if you sat too far back in the church. But with all that said, we were also exposed to many different things who helped us kind of grow up sometimes too fast, but it also helped us mature and have the open hearts that we have today. So we had to really learn to share our dad a lot. Because it was constantly, Katie, you won't remember this, you're too young, but we had the wall phones. And so
I love that you put me in that box like we're not the same age almost. I'm on the right side of 40 and she's jealous about it.
But many dinners would get interrupted because the wall phone would be ringing and dad would have to, go to the hospital and have special prayer for somebody. And then I have an open door policy at my house, and that comes from my dad because there was a bus station, a Greyhound bus station at the Burger King, and they literally knew, call my dad. We would give him a place to stay, for the night or something. So, I mean, there was pros and cons to it, but would I trade anything about it? Absolutely not now that I'm older. Did I hate it when I was younger? Absolutely. But now that I'm older, yeah, I mean, I appreciate every minute of it. Besides maybe having to wear the dresses to church because I still don't like dresses, but that's just me.
Women, this is a common theme for us of feeling judged and feeling like we're on the spotlight and we have to dress a certain way. But for you, that was really magnified as a child in a way that not everyone can possibly understand. What I find so fascinating about this, because I didn't know this necessarily about you, I guess I did. I kind of forgot your dad was this Baptist father, but growing up, I was in the Lutheran church and the kids were mean to me because I didn't go to the Lutheran school. Now I went to this girl's wedding, but I would ask her, so we became friends, but I would ask her, what page are we on? And she would just be like, turn her back, like trying to find the page in the Bible that we're on. And the pastor's daughter didn't even want to show where they were at. And so I could see where you're definitely on that spotlight and feeling like you have to show up a certain way, but we didn't feel that way apparently in Illinois at the Lutheran church. It was, just whatever.
Yeah. And like if you didn't answer the question, then they would look at you. But then if you answered all the questions, then they would look at you. It was a double-edged sword, so yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it was just a lot of pressure when you were a kid.
Yeah. And as a 5'1", taking all the projections in, that pressure for you would have been amplified, even more than someone that doesn't have that fifth line of projection. So from a human design standpoint.
Yeah.
So prior to you becoming this teacher, and we'll get into computer science because I've got follow-up questions about that master's degree you have, but you were working on your mom's tax business.
Yeah. So my mom So when I was a young child, she used to tell people that I would go to her accounting firm where she worked at in Ohio and sit in the high chair with her. So I've been exposed to accounting and numbers my entire life, literally since birth, is what I used to tell people. But back in the day when I was 10, and this is on my bio. This is my favorite story I tell any client that's willing to listen to me. Back in the 80s, your standard deduction, like I was telling Katie earlier, was only $200 to $300. So this one old man would come into where she worked at, and he would have like lawn bags full of lottery tickets, and he would take his losses on his taxes. It's called a Schedule A if you itemize deductions back then. I mean, you still can today, but it's not really valid. And he would claim all those losses. So me and my sisters would have to sort the lottery tickets and winner and loser piles. Well, my mom would reward us, or AKA pay us, as she would say, by going to the Blockbuster and renting a VCR and a VHS tape and pizza. And it would take us a couple days to days. But on that Friday night, we would get rewarded, and we'd have to add all those up and calculate them and stuff. My sisters didn't really find it fun, but I did. So that was my first love of math. And followed up by that, my dad had a carpet store. So then during the summer, I learned a different side of math from him by laying commercial tile and flooring and stuff like that. So math was just ingrained in me from day one.
Yeah, math and Jesus. And now we know why you cannot tell a lie.
Well, back in the day, I was pretty good at it, but I lost that along the way.
So how do you end up with a computer science master's in computer science? So curious how you go from counting lotto tickets to helping the youth of America to getting this particular master's.
Well, actually, so I always had a love for computers. And here's where I said I used to be able to tell a lie. So I'm going to get myself in trouble. Good thing my guidance counselors went on to be with Jesus. So back in the day, I started hacking computers in high school because I like to skip school. So I would hack into the computer system and make myself look like I was there all the time.
You're like Sandra Bullock in The Net, which anyone that's old enough remembers that movie. Number one, it scared the crap out of me. Number two, like you were ordering pizzas and hacking stuff before anybody, like, why were you not in Bill Gates's garage building the next, the thing? I guess women weren't invited to that meeting. I remember that. There was only men in the garage.
Oh, so I always had a love of computers, but growing up where I grew up, you went into two professions, teaching or medical. So I chose teaching. So
that is so fascinating. So 5-1 lines, the 5th line in human design, we have all these projections. My mom said you were going to be a teacher. My grandpa died my sophomore year of high school right before I turned 16. And he'd asked me, kid, what do you think you're going to be when you grow up? And I was like, and my mom answered for me and said, I think she'll be a teacher. And my great grandfather was a superintendent and he was a teacher. And I was always teaching my stuffed animals. I was the only child. Like I was just trying to tell people what to do. My parents were ordering me around. I wanted to order someone else around. I also owned a business at 12, Mom. You didn't tell anybody that.
Yeah.
So you had two options. Medical or teaching. And you chose teaching because I don't like blood. Why didn't you choose medicine?
Well, and so like it kind of got bungled there. So I went to the surgical technology and the nursing before the teaching.
That's right.
But it's okay. It's all a journey. Well, you don't know this part. I kind of actually had a scholarship to UK for orthodontics, but me being young and dumb messed all that up too. So,
well,
life choices.
Give me a little bit about what young and dumb means for you.
We don't want to talk about that today.
I did not ask you what was off limits before we record.
Yeah, so that's okay. Off limits. That's off limits.
Noted. So, but was it your dream to be a dentist?
It was my dream to be an orthodontist. Yeah, it was my dream to be an orthodontist. Just because I love to see people smile and I want to give people pretty smiles.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So I was still going to reach people, still going to touch people.
That's right. Your hands is your big superpower.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And can we talk about that with your hands? Because that's kind of that on the table. I'll have to ask a list for the things we're not allowed to talk about next time.
Yeah, I reckon we will. Okay, so anyway,
You said open book on your bio on your website. You said, ask me anything. I'm an open book.
okay, so what do you want to know about my hands? How I don't
So
like
I
to
think
touch
I was just
people?
gonna have you share. I think it's really cool from a human design perspective. Your hands are healing. It's your superpower, just like mine is imagination. And if anyone's ever met me, they know that's to be true about my imagination. Your hands are healing, but you also grew up being afraid to touch people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tell us why.
So I have a condition. It's a medical condition, and I forget what it's called. But basically, if I don't take a certain medication, my hands actually get very hot, and they just get very moist, like sweaty. So I grew up growing up like I didn't, growing up in the Baptist church, everybody wanted to shake hands and hug and blah blah blah, and I didn't like doing that because I felt uncomfortable and shy. So I have this apprehension, I guess is the correct word. I'm very good with math, but not linguistics. Of wanting to touch people. And then when I met Katie, we were talking about it, and she said that my superpower is touching people. And I thought that was very intriguing to me because I still, to this day, at 44 years old, have an apprehension to physically touch people. So if I get to that point where I actually want to hug you or I want to shake your hand or I even will let you get remotely close to me and touch me, that means you're a very special person to me. And so I thought that that was very intriguing that she told me that that was my superpower because I feel like that's one reason that I metaphysically touch people by helping them with their taxes or
You do.
listening to
And so you
them
use
or
your hands to help people. You literally
yeah,
take their taxes off their hands. I see how people
yeah,
bring you taxes in bags,
yeah.
in like
Oh
shoe
yeah,
boxes, and you take them off their hands. So one of the ways that you help people is by taking things off their hands.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and like this morning I had a consult and that's literally what she said. She said, "You're taking something off my hands." And I never thought about it like that. And but I mean, that's what people said. And when Katie was here, I have a rice sack full of documents, and it was just sitting here and she's seen it. And I have totes. And I mean, I've gotten Carrabba's bags full of stuff and things. So it's kind of crazy how the human design really does apply to you or me or anybody that's listened to what she has to say. It's pretty amazing.
It'd be interesting to know, if you weren't on the medication, like when the hands get hot. I'm just curious, like as you were growing up, was it all the time or was it just in certain circumstances?
All the time.
All the time. Mm,
Yeah. And I mean, there is surgeries out there, but it's to me right now, it's not worth the risk because I could lose function in my hands.
yeah. Yeah. And I imagine there's some side effects with medication too.
Oh, yeah. Memory loss. That's why I can't remember crap.
But numbers
Well, I mean, numbers make sense, I can make them make
and
sense.
dollars if you have enough of them.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what's funny because I can remember I always kind of compare myself to Rain Man a little bit because he could always state those baseball statistics. If it's numbers, I can make it make sense. I can remember it. Like I have this weird phenomenon. Everybody's birthday in my family, I got you.
Mm.
Social security numbers in my family. I'm not going to say this like all my clients because I can't. I got too many now. But like my families, my sisters, my dads, something I've actually had a member for a certain length of time. I got you. I know all those. So IRS statutes, I got it.
Mm.
But, like telling you what I ate for dinner last night, get that.
Yeah, it's funny. My memory works in the opposite way yours does. So that's super fun for me. Like numbers, like, and as owning a business and being the executive director of a nonprofit, like I can balance a book, I can pull a P&L, but the first two are going to be wrong. And I'll catch it myself probably if someone else doesn't, but they're not going to be right. And that is not my ability to pull out, Jeopardy trivia from the history. I got you on that, but not on numbers.
There we go. See, that's why we're a good team.
Yeah, it would be a great team. And then you bring the 5-1 energy, like we're going to crush it together. I love that.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating how the two of us have sort of, I didn't dip my toe in a million certifications and degrees like you did. I'll tell you why. It was part of like 12 years of my life. I was married to someone. We didn't spend a dime on me. So that was part of why. And took until Katie was single and had a little bit of money before she was able to invest in her own certifications. But you've had several careers, like how you learn through experiences and how you've discovered, your love of dentistry was taken away and you had to go out and kind of figure out what else was next for you.
I've always said I don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
Me too. I always say that too. I don't want to grow up. Try and stop
Exactly.
me.
I'm a Toys R Us kid.
I mean, that was pushed down my throat as a child, so I believed that I had this option, Peter Pan.
Yeah, absolutely. That's me. And Lord, so one reason and I don't even think I told you this, I may have told you this, but one of the reasons that I started my business, and I'm like, if you ever visit my office, you're going to see Volkswagen vans all over the place. Katie's seen them. And I said, I can take my business remote. And I've always wanted to take, and like the Dirty Job show inspired me because I just want to travel and I want to pick up jobs and I want to try them out. So doing what I do vicariously, I get to do that. I get to hear about a trucking job. I get to hear about a coaching job. I get to hear about a photographer, so vicariously I'm helping people, but I'm also getting to dip my toe in these different jobs that I want to learn about without actually having to do them. So, within, I wanted to do it this year, but I didn't get to make it because I had to grow my business, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But like next year, I'm already planning to go out to Arizona and see my Taekwondo client in his studio, see my guy in Arizona. They just got a contract with the county that they live in for their mobile tire company. I've got a client in California that's the CEO of Instacart. I want to go see these people in their environment, and that's going to make me happy. So I'm getting to do all these things vicariously through people, and I've never been happier because of that, because it's fulfilling both my dreams and theirs.
And that's our job. This is the hard part about the 5-1 is we are here to have an interpersonal experience. We're actually not here to be able to make our own dreams come true. We are here to make others' dreams come true. And when you finally land
every day.
Yeah, same. And when you finally land in that career, like as we did, I mean, we started out in it, teaching dentistry would have absolutely made people's dreams come true. And it's a theme. And what I always encourage people when they're trying to figure out, what do I do with my next career? And here we are, like two women that have had a million of them, is I encourage you to take a look at what's the theme in your life. And we have so many shared themes, the two of us, that, really that passion for teenagers. As a high school teacher, so when you talk about those at-risk kids, and I love that you talk about the West Point kid, because my last year teaching, that was when I realized that career wasn't for me. And I want to get a little bit into how you realize that your careers weren't for you. For me, that last year, I'd opened a CrossFit gym. I had a different passion. But I also didn't feel like I was connecting well for the students in the area that I was serving. I had left an inner city and I was in a small town in Illinois, and the needs of students in Kentucky are different than the needs of the students in a small town in Illinois or a big city in Kentucky or in, I don't know if there's big cities in Kentucky.
Yes, Katie, there is.
But my point
I didn't live in them, but yes, there is.
I understand. So my last year teaching, though, I felt like God was definitely saying, this isn't where we want you to stay. But I had one student who emailed me a year later, and so actually a semester later after we graduated, and said, thank you for teaching me how to answer the question. He was at West Point and he was one of 3 kids in his Middle Eastern history class that was passing. Because and his professor made them write their teachers to tell them thank you, because the rest of them had teachers that probably did multiple guest tests or short answer, but nothing about how you actually address a question and formulate an argument. So we have that connection too. What are the moments where you realize this isn't my career forever? How did you transition into the next one?
Well, when I left the program that I worked for, actually it come down to, we had to do layoffs. And there was a young man there that had been working for us just a couple years, and I had the opportunity to, at the time, I didn't need the money. And he had just gotten married and his new wife was pregnant. So I was like, well, I'll take the layoff and let him stay. So I went ahead and stepped down because again, I didn't need it. He did. So that was the biggest transition for me at that time. And so that's kind of how that started. And then from there, I kind of floundered for a few years actually, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then from there, that's kind of when I started dipping my toe more into entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
And
tell me
then
a
I
little bit
decided,
about the floundering because I think this is part of the journey in the process is spending a little
yeah,
time like floundering a little bit. And also just want to acknowledge you for recognizing, okay, the grants are gone, we're losing funding. And although I would love to stay, this isn't right for me. This is what he needs right now. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, what did a floundering look like for you? And how did you like be okay in those moments? Or and if you weren't okay, how do you get yourself from floundering to standing again?
Well, so what I had envisioned was going to happen definitely did not happen. I actually thought I was going to be able to travel. Um, and that didn't happen. So then that's when I decided, I was like, okay, well, what would I like to try? So I was like, well, let's try photography. Okay, didn't like that. Okay, let's try being independent consultant for retail. Okay, that was pretty fun. I like doing that because I could be my own boss and go in and set things up and deconstruct things. I actually did that for a
That sounds
while I
fun.
did the photography. Yeah, it was fun as heck. And I spent more money than I made, but it was still fun. you know. And then from then, I guess I did that for 2 to 3 years, just off and on, odd jobs, just picking up odd jobs. Like I said, just trying. I was like, oh, okay, I'll try this for a day. Okay, I'll try that for a day. And it was fun just because I got to do what I wanted, and I was my own independent boss. And I was like, oh, I want to go to work today. Nah, I'll watch a movie, and stuff like that. And then I got the use of that freedom. And then after that, is when I started my other business, and I had a t-shirt business for a couple of years when t-shirts was really, really growing.
I
And
almost started a t-shirt business. We sat down, we had a notebook, we had designs. It was when I was in CrossFit in Chicago. We were going to, the CrossFit t-shirts people pay $30
yeah,
for.
yeah,
It says swingers and it's like an idiot with a kettlebell. Like this was my
yeah. I mean, and you can make them for $4 and sell them for 30.
yes.
It's a 75% markup.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, why not? So yeah, but then I got kind of tired of dealing with all that. So I was like, yeah, this is killing me. I like the design part, hated the other part of
That's
it.
how I
So
would feel too. I don't want to do the other side. I want to design it. I want to wear it. I want to talk to people and sell it. Everything
yeah.
else sounds terrible.
Yeah, I just got bored of it. So then I got the opportunity to go back at school, be a student mentor, and I like that till I actually I opened a store selling the supplies for the t-shirts.
I love
Um,
it. Become the middleman.
I was like, here, somebody needs this. There ain't nothing more local, so I did that, and then I ended up moving to Knoxville and shut that down. So there you go.
And we got to meet because you moved to Knoxville. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful.
Well, I'm really grateful that you come to Film City that day.
Yeah, me too. And
Yeah.
we didn't talk about how you got out of the nursing and the surgical stuff. I share a little bit about, what was I always talk about the push and the pull, so when you you have a push out the door, but is there anything pulling you towards the different direction?
Nothing's pulling me back there at all. Nothing would ever make me go back to it. The push there was several different pushes. I guess if I was to say anything is pulling me back, it would be the patients. But there was several different situations in which I was put in that I consoled the patient because I liked working in surgery. I loved working with eyes and brains and bones. Because
She's laughing at me because I made a horrified face.
but the doctors are just so rude, not only to I won't say all doctors, I shouldn't say all doctors, but a lot of the doctors, I'll never forget the most heartbreaking story. This one doctor, we were doing a scope on this guy, and this is the day I quit. This is the day I quit. I left. I never went back. I never even finished my LPN, and I was done. Um, we're doing a scope on the guy, and he says, "Well, you got cancer. You're gonna die." Just like that. This is blunt like that. And the guy starts crying. Well, what else are you going to do? You're going to start crying. So I'm up there, broke scrub. I'm up there consoling the guy. And the doctor just completely cusses me out for consoling the guy. Well, when you're working in something like that, you don't know what's going to happen to the patient. Well, circumstances ended up bringing that guy back to me, and I seen him while I was still on rotation. And he come back to thank me for consoling him. Thank God he went and got a second opinion, and that man did not have cancer.
Wow.
Oh, so that it was, if I had to give you a push and a pull, that would be the push and the pull in the same story.
Yeah. And a very definitive and clear moment for you to walk away. Man, I always talk. I've talked about doctors before when I was coaching. When I was going through certification for coaching, I'm like, I need to coach the doctors.
Yeah.
And I did just coach a girl that is going to go to medical school. We're still coaching her, but she's going to go to medical school, and she's a really cool testimonial on my website. But part of what happens for doctors, for leaders, and this is where leadership I landed on for me, is they get this God complex. We have these titles in society, right? Where I love the keyboard warriors. Like, what makes you an expert? Do you have degrees in science? Like, degrees do not make you an expert.
No.
And neither does being a doctor. And after I had a dental, you bring up dental. I would have never dreamed I needed a second opinion for dental. Mm-hmm. I go in because I thought I had chipped a tooth. He's like, nah, you just had a calcification fall off. But by the way, you have 7 cavities that need to be filled. And you talk about just intuition and whatever. When I went back to have one quadrant filled, it was the one that only had 1 tooth. And I've only ever had one other cavity my entire life. And I was like 23, so I didn't remember it. I didn't know I was gonna get like a shot of Novocaine. I didn't know I was gonna have 2 needles. Like, oh my God. Like, and I'm so terrified of needles. And my mom was a phlebotomist. She was still a med tech. Like, she would draw my blood, and she was the only one that could do it. I would wake up with the Batman Band-Aid on my arm, and I knew she took my blood to see if I was anemic that month. And I go to another dentist, and he says, I don't even see 1 cavity. And he's like, the pit that he used to fill your cavity is bigger than the cavity that was in there. After a couple $1,000s at the other guy, my dad's like, come to Illinois, let me take you to my dentist. 0 cavities. He put a little bit of sealant on a couple spots, and that was it. It's like, I don't know. So second opinions, yes. What a great push out the door for you. As for our listeners here, we're about to wrap up. I hope you're inspired today by Dana and her. I know I am. Just her willingness to say, I can just make money by trying to see what I like to do. I don't think we don't really uphold that, right? There's no career trajectory in there that says take 2 years and do a bunch of odd jobs. Like, that doesn't exist there. And I think it's so important that you're being pulled into whatever you do next, right? You weren't just like, okay, I'm being pushed out of this no grant left over here thing. I'm just going to go to this next, you took some time to really explore. And we think as a society that career is this like linear thing, and it feels less than sometimes to say, oh, I have a master's in computer science because I like to hack things, but here I'm going to go and, do an odd job. Yeah. And so thank you so much for sharing your stories. You cannot tell a lie, George Washington. So as we wrap up here.
Of course.
Dina, what is your superpower?
Oh, Katie, so many to list. Let's narrow it to one. So
humility.
I'm just kidding. I want to answer this 2 ways. Professionally, my superpower is to find and reduce your tax liability, because I will push and pull I find every tax deduction that you are actually legally able to take. Personally, my superpower is caring for you sometimes too much to the default for me. Yeah.
What's your purpose?
My purpose is to bring happiness to people.
What's next for you?
I want 5 different companies in 5 different states.
I was hoping you were going to say a nonprofit with you, Katie, but I'll take your companies.
I didn't say could it not be a nonprofit, Katie?
That's
Yes, there's
right.
5 companies in 5 states.
I think this is what had drawn me so much to you as well, is you're an entrepreneur in your soul. Whether an entrepreneur shows up as a Baptist preacher or a bookkeeper, there's something in your soul that is calling you to create in life and to help others create. And I'm just happy that I get to be a part of that experience. I always give my guests, thank you. I always give my guests the last word because I talk enough for both of us. So the last word of what
I talked a lot.
What's your last word for our guests today? Anything you want to leave them with, inspire them with, truths you want to drop? The floor is yours.
So like I have a song that I recently started living by. And it's Casey Musgraves, Follow Your Arrow. If you don't know that song, I suggest you look it up. That's my